Hey everybody, welcome to the Green Room for DisrupTV. I'm here with my amazing co-host, co-founder Vala Afshar, and our producer Elle, and more importantly, our guest. We introduce everyone in reverse order. We ask them where they're from, what they're talking about today. So we'll go backward. Helene, tell us a bit where you're coming in from and what are we talking about today? Are you all fired up?
I am fired up. I'm so excited to be here. I live in Berkeley, California, and I'm here to talk about innovation and particularly about innovation team and how do you fire them and sustain the long process of innovation.
Magnifique. Thank you for being here. Kathleen, where are you coming from? What are we talking about today?
Yeah, so I'm coming from Houston, Texas, and we're going to talk about how non-technical executives can really rethink and reshape their way of looking at their business through the lens of AI.
Wonderful. AI, what's AI? Who knows? And Phong, welcome. Welcome to the event and our show. Where are you coming in from? What are we talking about?
Thanks for having me. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, and we're going to talk about disrupting analytics and the capital markets.
All at the same time, live from Delmarva. So a place I know well. So, well, thank you. We'll turn it back to Elle. We'll do the count. And of course, we'll see you in the show. So go ahead.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. Please follow us on X at DisrupTV. Show send Ray, myself, our distinguished guests your questions. We'll do our best to answer them live. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the founder, CEO of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I see Ray on TV every day, Bloomberg, CNBC, CNN, he's everywhere, Fox Business. And in my humble opinion, he's one of the top futurists to follow on X at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm here with Wang Vala Afshar, the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce. He's also the author of multiple books, including this one, and of course, a new book called Autonomous that will be coming out. Executives around the world follow everything. They spend every time looking at his tweets. They're insightful, innovative, and inspirational. And when he's not leading, keynoting, or speaking at events at Salesforce, you can find him on business TV outlets like Bloomberg and, of course, ABC and other places. He's also posting insightful analyses on ZDNet. And, of course, you can get that every week. So, but it's not about us. It's about amazing guests, and it's about innovators and pioneers. Who do we have to kick off today?
What an honor, Ray. We have an incredible CEO, Phong. He's president and CEO of Strategy, the world's first and largest Bitcoin treasury company and a global leader in AI and business intelligence software. I think as of today, Strategy hodls 629,376 Bitcoin. Who's counting? It's an incredible 5-year commitment, true trailblazer. Phong became CEO in 2022 after joining the company in 2015, where he previously served roles including Chief Financial Officer and Chief Operating Officer. Prior to Strategy, Phong led leadership roles at Deloitte Consulting, Nextel International, and Nextel Communications. Welcome, Phong, to DisrupTV.
Vala, thanks for having me. Although I feel like I should have a book, but I don't.
There's 10 books in you. I've heard your keynotes. There's lots of books in you.
Phong, there are at least 1 million books in you. The knowledge and the thought leadership you've provided for the industry both in software and in the future of crypto is all sitting there. But let's talk about the core business. Your core business really about, what's in strategy, the analytics, the BI, the innovations that are going on. Last I picked off was hanging out in hypercards and doing some really cool stuff. Pick it up from there on the AI side as to what you guys have been building and what you guys have been innovating in terms of the product set.
Yeah, we've been working with Gen AI since 2023. We launched fully integrated AI capabilities across our entire software platform. So think about anything you can do in the BI space. It's all AI driven now. That was step one. Step two is we've created what we call a universal semantic layer. We've completely opened up our data layer, our governance, our security to anybody who wants to use it. And if you think about it, some companies now might have 1,000 agents performing 1 million actions. In a year, they might have 1 million agents performing 1 billion actions. What do you need? You need those agents to be able to source their information from a layer, a business-driven data layer. And that's what we're working on. That's what we released. It's the right product for the right market at the right time. Everybody wants to fully automate their workflows, their employees using agents. And they have to do it on reliable structured data in addition to unstructured data.
And this governed layer also ties back to your universal intelligence layer as well, right?
Yeah, we've been, what's nice about this is we've been doing this for the last 25 years. We've had a semantic layer, a governance layer, a business layer that's highly performant, highly secure. We just said, well, if you're an agent, what do you need? You need that layer, and we're opening it up to everybody. And everyone needs one right now. If you're an existing customer, you have your data there already sitting there. In the future, you'll be able to access this layer if you don't have strategy. And it solves the problem of you have an agent, that's great, but it needs to have reliable data, and the data sources change every single day. And you can't get into a world where you're waiting a year or 2 years for IT to complete, taking data from a transactional system, putting it into a data warehouse, putting it into a semantic layer, doing the ETL, doing the transformations. A year later, that data is stale, and you have 18 more demands of data sources. What we built is an AI-driven universal semantic layer. Like you said, semantic layer was there. We've just put AI on top of it. So it's a very natural next evolution for us. Very exciting.
I want to go back to you writing a book. You recently gave a talk at MIT, and it was a TED Talk format. And there's a best-selling book in the talk. You said when you were at MIT, and what most colleges and universities, about 5,000 of them in this country, they teach you how to make money. And they say you can start or run a company, A, manage money, B, or C, sell to people doing A and B. And you set the premise in your talk, exceptional talk. Just Google Phong Lee, MIT, and our audience can find it. You talked about corporations and their role in terms of 126 million, 35 million corporations. They employ 126 million people, 50% of the workforce, valued at $28 trillion. You talk about publicly traded companies. You talk about the S&P 500. And what was interesting in your talk, not only you signified the importance of companies and corporations, large and small, you showed their 10-year performance. And S&P 500 10-year performance was 11%. Russell 1000 largest companies, 10%. Russell 2000, 5%. US GDP, 2.5%. Then in your talk, you talk about private equity at 14%, venture capital at 11%, low teens to single digits. And then you open our eyes to why 5 years ago, you and the team decided to invest in Bitcoin. Can you give us a little bit of a history of why you look to invest in Bitcoin, and how these lessons and you specifically challenging dominant logic has positioned Strategy as one of the highest performing company, in fact, number one in the last 5 years?
Yeah, Vala, first of all, thanks for the softball setup there. I appreciate it. Look, I came to the realization, I've been working for about 25 years now, and people call work the rat race, climbing the corporate ladder, whatever it is. It is hard. We have 200 million people in the US working for companies and corporations that are, if you strip out the Magnificent Seven, performing at 3, 4, 5% returns,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And growth rates. And think about those 200 million people. Think about yourself if you're watching this. How hard have you worked? How hard have your parents worked? How much have you innovated? How much have you learned? And in the end, 2, 3, 4, 5%. That's it, right? And you know, like, if I was to tell you could do 5% a year for 20 years, maybe you'd be happy with that. But I don't think you would be. Whether it be growth in your company or growth in your income or growth in your wealth. And that is what most of us, 95% of us, 98% of companies are relegated to. It doesn't matter how smart you are, where you went to school, it doesn't matter what life you were born into. That's what the average is. There's got to be a better way. And the better way is innovating through technology in the capital markets. And that's what Bitcoin is, right? You got to find an invention. I've always believed that the way you get out of the rat race, the way you beat the market, is through technology innovation, right? And that's what the Mag 7 is, by the way. It's technology innovation. And that's what Bitcoin gives you. Bitcoin is the highest performing asset in the history of the world. Since 2007, it's returned, 2008, it's returned about 50% a year. It doesn't happen, right? And so when you take Bitcoin and you strap yourself to it, or your company to it, or your balance sheet to it, you're basically strapping yourself to a rocket booster that's going up 50%. And the question is, do you just buy Bitcoin and get 50%? Do you tamp that down, take something that has a lower risk and get 20, 30%? Or you do what strategy did and lever it up, innovate in the capital markets and get 2x Bitcoin performance and get 100%. That's then the choice, is you start gravitating around 50% growth instead of gravitating around 5% growth. You don't do well, you get 3%. You do well, you get 8, 9, 10%. You perform like the S&P, you get 11%. 11% is respectable, but guess what? I worked my ass off. I didn't work my ass off for 11%. You guys didn't work your asses off for 11%. You did it for 50%, for 100%. That's what you want. That's what you should do.
Absolutely. And you used a very specific word that really resonated with me when I listened to you talk. You said smart people create wealth from their balance sheet. And I tell you, your colleague, Michael Saylor, was on the show a few years ago, and he gave Ray and I, Bitcoin 101, and dropped some incredible nuggets of wisdom, so much so that I changed my own personal investment thesis. And it's created generational wealth for my family because your colleague and yourself kind enough to come on the show and explain, based on first principles, how people should think about their balance sheet. So anyway, for those of you listening, don't just listen. Listen carefully, debate with the words in your mind, and then take action. It changed my life.
That's awesome. That's really cool. 3 years ago was perfect timing.
You know, I was still trying to find these Bitcoins I had when they were at 4,000 on machines that I don't know are still around, these drives, but that's a whole other story. But hey, I think as part of this, like you guys have built a framework, right, around BTC KPIs. And I think these Bitcoin KPIs are really important. Some of them, like I think you talk about BTC yield, gain, valuation metrics around income, equity, torque, multiple. Talk about these, because you're talking about this as the new BTC standard. And it's one of those topics that is about to enter the boardroom and should enter the boardroom. And it's something we'll probably be talking about at our board of directors tech and governance summit, because we really want folks in the board to understand that this is a lot more complicated than what they're realizing, but very, very essential for the future of Treasury.
Yeah, before Bitcoin, I would say there were two major ways to value companies and two major ways to measure success in a company. Let's go back to the 50s and 60s when corporations and stock markets were becoming more accessible. It was primarily, and corporate finance is still taught this way today, it's primarily discount cash flows.
Yep.
Right? EBITDAs, earnings, revenues, and sometimes you look at the balance sheet and assets. And that was the way to look at companies, and it's very reasonable. How much cash flow can you generate over time? Maximize cash flow, right?
Yep.
came along, started with Microsoft, and then it became SaaS technology and AWS and Salesforce and other companies like that. And people realized that looking at companies just based on earnings didn't make sense. Let's look at revenue. Let's look at multiples on revenue, right? And let's look at all the SaaS, different SaaS metrics. Amazon lost money for 10 years, and it was okay for everybody. And there became a second set of KPIs. I think this is the third wave. These are Bitcoin treasury companies focused on Bitcoin and the balance sheet, right? And earning yield off of the Bitcoin potentially at some point in time, giving customers a yield off of the Bitcoin, giving shareholders and equity holders and debt holders yield off the Bitcoin. So for now, you need a third set of KPIs, right? And that's where Bitcoin yield, really how much additional Bitcoin can you give to your shareholders on a non-dilutive basis, Bitcoin per share. And we have to educate people about this new space and this new set of valuation. We created a website, strategy.com. You go to it, you can see all the different KPIs, how they're calculated. And so the interesting thing about strapping your company to Bitcoin is now we do earnings quarterly, but we provide updates on our business every 15 seconds, right? Imagine if Salesforce or imagine if Microsoft literally had a website and publish your internal KPIs on that website externally every 15 seconds. I'll ask the question, why wouldn't you do that? The only reason you wouldn't do that is there's lawyers and accountants who say, well, if you're going to do that, you have to audit it every 15 seconds. The lawyers have to review it and you have to sign off your disclosures all these reasons. What if you didn't have to? Isn't that the most transparent thing to your shareholder? So not only are we strapping our company to Bitcoin, we're creating ultra transparency and saying, you can just look at our KPIs every 15 seconds. Go check it out, right? And we have historical graphs and charts that you can self-serve, and you can actually download the data, and we're going to have it API driven. That's what Bitcoin does. It opens up everyone's world, not just to a vehicle that increases 50% every year, which is awesome, and congratulations, you've done well because of it. But it changes the way you think about running a company.
For sure. And your advice has been for individuals, look, spend 100 to 1,000 hours, learn Bitcoin, learn about it, and then build your balance sheet with it. We have lots of executives that tune into our podcast. What advice do you have for them? Is it similar? Like teach yourself about Bitcoin and then build your balance sheet. Is there any other? Of course, you have to have courage. You have to be able to build consensus. You have to be able to challenge dominant logic, all these traditional KPIs that you went to school, prestigious schools like MIT that taught you that these are the ways you're going to create wealth. What advice do you have for folks that are listening who continue to challenge an entity that's not, what, $2.5 trillion market cap? At what point do they take it seriously?
I remember it was in 1994, and I found this thing called the internet. And what did I do? I went and I tried to create my own webpage. And it wasn't too bad even, but you know, like
Mosaic Netscape time.
Yeah, Mosaic. My name was Phong, so I had like a little like clip art thing for each letter. It looked like I was, about to send a note to
you
someone.
And Jeff Bezos at the same time, 1994.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't build an e-commerce website, but I built a website. To learn the internet, I went and built a website, right? And so how do you learn Bitcoin? Same way. Right, go and get yourself a hardware wallet. Try to figure out how do you actually acquire Bitcoin. Maybe start up a node. And if that's too much, right? Okay, I get it. The audience here might primarily technologists. That's too much. Buy some Bitcoin some other way, right? Buy through an ETF, buy through strategy, whatever you think makes sense. Start to interact with it.
Yeah.
Read as much as you can. Watch as many podcasts and shows as you can. And if you're asking why, I think this is more important technology than the internet in the 90s. This is the new capital markets, right? Capital markets are basically the money that drives companies in the world, right? You're going to need to understand this and learn it. Learn it from first principles. Do it yourself. That was my advice. And I think
I'm an immigrant refugee. My family had to abruptly leave a country during war, and we left everything behind. Both parents were executives, yet we couldn't. Our wealth wasn't mobile. You think about the millions of people in Ukraine and others. Now, this to me happened 30 years ago. Today, when you can have a distressed moment and move anywhere in the world, and you don't lose your wealth. My parents, who were executives, had to work midnight to 8, third shift. Forget about their graduate degrees. Forget about their accomplishments. They restarted life because everything was left behind. So the power of this is far beyond, simplicity and appreciation and gains. There's a lot of freedom that comes with it. Anyway, sorry, Ray, I didn't mean to add commentary to it.
Well, you might have something similar to share too.
I'm an immigrant refugee too. Very similar story. And whether you're an immigrant refugee or you're a tax-paying American, the money you make is yours. Right. That should be the way. And sure, you should pay taxes to get things like defense and get civil services and get streets and roads and fire and police and all that. Great. Once you're done with that, the rest is yours.
Yes.
And what Bitcoin allows is for you to self-custody and for you to own what is rightfully yours and your hard work, whether you live in the US or whether you live in the Ukraine or Vietnam or Russia or Argentina. Very, very much. And this is why people really should learn, right? Like you're working 2,000, 2,500 hours a year for what purpose? To create wealth for yourself and your family and your friends. Preserve that wealth. You should learn about Bitcoin, right? And you can watch as many Michael Saylor podcasts as you want. You can read all the books, you can watch this. Look, they're all great ways to learn, but you owe it to yourself to learn.
Phong, real quick, when you're sitting in Krieger in that computer lab thinking about commerce at Hopkins, you never imagined this would happen. But put your futurist hat on for a second. Where do you see Bitcoin in 3 to 5 years in terms of adoption, in terms of corporate acceptance, in terms of really not a price target? I'm not asking for that, but just really in terms of like its place and role in society.
5 years ago, we were the first company to establish Bitcoin as our primary treasury reserve asset. And companies like Block followed, Tesla followed, founder-led tech companies. And now we have over 180 companies around the world that have Bitcoin in their treasuries. 3 or so years ago, El Salvador was the first country to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Now we have 3 or 4 countries and we have 10 more talking about it. It would not surprise me if 5 years from now, we have 100 companies or 100 countries with Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So we're going from retail adoption in the early 2010s to corporate adoption in the early 2020s to nation state adoption. For a lot of the reasons you mentioned, though, why nation states think that Bitcoin is important too, right? You want a non-sovereign store of value. And you can imagine once you get nation state adoption, the price is going to go up. The importance of Bitcoin is going to continue to go up. It's going to be ubiquitous around the world. And you're all going to remember this conversation, right? In 2025 saying, hey, I should have bought Bitcoin.
It's never too late.
All right. Phong Le, President and CEO of Strategy, one of the premier thought leaders in the world of BTC finance and, of course, BTC Treasury and really the future of Bitcoin. So thank you so much for being on the show. I will call you later. So take care.
Wang Vala, thank you.
Cheers.
There you go.
I'm not joking. It changed my life. I mean, I don't want to get into the details, but
no,
I threw away my investment strategy, and it's the most important, maybe the most important decisions I've made in terms of generational wealth. So anyway, don't ignore it. Stay curious, stay teachable. And our next guest is going to also help shed some light on an incredible, powerful emerging tech, maybe the most important technology of my lifetime. As much as I value ledgers and blockchain and crypto, when it comes to AI and agentic AI, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced in the 30 years of my career in tech. Kathleen Perley, founder of Demystify AI and author of AI Made Simple. God, we needed more simple and more intuitive. Results Made Real, an executive guide to partnering with the future. Kathleen is a recognized AI thought leader, entrepreneur, and educator, bridging the gap between AI and executive decision-making. As a founder of Demystify AI and an advisor at Rice Business, Kathleen consults with Fortune 500 companies, boards, leadership teams on AI strategy, implementation, and governance. Kathleen specializes in turning AI complexity into real-world business impact. Welcome, Kathleen, to DisrupTV.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a very robust entry, so I appreciate it. Sounds a little bit bigger than probably.
I had to cut your bio short. We only have 20 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, 100%.
You've done a lot. You've done a lot.
The Wikipedia is too long, dude. No, but anyways, This is human distillation at work.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
but no,
absolutely.
I love the part about your book, and I'm reading it and I'm looking at another AI book. Then I was like, oh wait, this is an AI book tied to business models, tied to actually getting folks to understand, and that's really an important piece. So in this book, right, you're right, leaders are completely confused as to what AI to deploy or how to deploy. What are some of the common patterns you're seeing helping companies and leaders overcome?
Yeah, I think, the first and foremost, when I talk to a lot of leaders, they understand that they need to be integrating AI, they need to be leaning into this technology. They're getting the pressure from their boards. This is a big thing, but they're seeing it more as a magic wand or a technology rollout or deployment. They think, okay, we find the right tool, we turn on the light switch, and voila, all this amazing things will happen. And what I'm finding is when that doesn't happen, they are resorting to some really typical patterns and behaviors. They're disguising paralysis decision-making as prudence. And so they're utilizing this idea of, well, we're going to be prudent and not look at AI and machine learning because quite frankly, they're not really sure what to do. And then you have those others who have a lot of movement going on within their organization as it pertains to AI. Every single individual is thinking about how it could be applied for them and their role in particular. But it's not really creating that momentum because it's being done at an individual and not at a strategic business level. And then the last one is you end up having the reactive ones, which I find the most interesting. And I can tell you, I have not had an experience where I've gone in and talked to a business about, how they've decided on, what existing pilots they have today. So how did you get there? What made you decide that that's what you're going to focus on and use AI to help solve it? And oftentimes I hear one of two reasons every single time. Either their competitor is doing it, so they thought maybe it's a good idea, or two, they got sold by a consultant that told them that's what they should be doing. And, that means you're not driving it from a strategic, you're driving it from a place of fear. And so you really need to start thinking about how do you reshape these business processes to unlock the full potential of what AI is capable of, not how do you take AI and shove it down into your existing processes. And, I think what's fascinating, and I teach at the business school at Rice in the graduate level, is I typically say, my class is for non-technical executives. And I always have at least 4 students after the first day of class tell me they're going to drop my class because I show they have to do an AI wrapper at the end of the class. Yep. And they're like, well, I don't even know what an API is. And I said, it's okay. This is why you're here in this class, because the people who are going to revolutionize how we get things done in our world aren't going to be the AI ML folks in Silicon Valley. They're going to be people who have a deep understanding of an industry, the silos, how they can create value for their customers. They need your insight. We don't need you to build neural networks, but we need to understand what this looks like enough so that you can really start to think about how do we rethink our business strategy.
It's so true. It's as one of those nerds who actually builds AI agents. And by the way, I say nerd affectionately. Nerds rule the world. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm a nerd. Sorry. First of all, it's hard to build an agent. It's magic when you do it, but the composable nature of creating an agent, meaning understanding the jobs to be done, understanding the tasks that map to a set job, the data you need, the channels you need, the guardrails you need. You need to operate like a surgeon. It's like grounded truth process of taking an algorithm and giving it agency to execute on your behalf. So it's super hard, but again, I think it's electricity for the 21st century, meaning if you avoid this, you're going to be in the dark and it's going to be hard for you to be relevant and compete and win. What steps do you recommend for leaders to start using and start being comfortable with maybe being a little bit uncomfortable? Because again, it is a little bit scary. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy to implement agentic AI in the enterprise. I live in that space and it's not easy, but when you do it, it's unlike anything you've ever experienced. What advice do you have for leaders? How do they get in the game?
I think the first thing I would tell them to do is to remove the word AI out of the vocabulary in terms of don't get distracted by the shiny object, right? Sit down and think, what are the existing challenges our business is facing today? What are the existing opportunities that we can't really accomplish? knowing what you do know about AI, which requires some AI literacy foundation, what is possible? And what does that value creation look like in year 1 and in year 3? And then really start to think about, okay, what is the likelihood of getting this right? What are the data sources that we need? And so just like in any other type of transition or any type of business decision, you really need to think about it strategically. And I'll give a prime example. My last company, we were a digital healthcare transformation company. We were doing propensity modeling for advertising for healthcare. And, one of the things that we struggled with, we were about 75 people when I sold, was competing for RFPs just because of the time nature of it.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you think about, okay, if I could complete 5 more RFPs a year, I know the average RFP for the type of work that we were doing was at least 4 million. And I have this win rate. So if I can use AI to expedite that, this is the potential value I could add to my bottom line.
Oh, yeah.
And so you really need to think about it from a problem solution or opportunity solution perspective, and then put numbers to it. I mean, that's the other thing I see oftentimes. Only 20% of corporations are utilizing any type of KPIs in their AI pilot integration roadmaps. And so when you do this process, you're also somewhat creating some of the KPIs so that you can go back and when your board asks, you can say, this is what we're doing and this is how it's fared.
You articulated 4 types of companies on their journey, from curtain watchers to born performers. Talk about the 4 categories and what's required for each of them to get to the next level.
Yeah, so your curtain performers are what I call oftentimes the curtain holders. These are the organizations that are intentionally avoiding AI. They're kind of hiding behind the scenes, watching maybe. They're missing these opportunities for innovation. And unlike some of the more traditional opportunities we've seen in the past with technological revolutions and innovation, this is moving so fast that you don't have time to wait. Even making the wrong step in certain ways is still momentum moving forward. So you have those curtain holders. Those are oftentimes, I find, the individuals or the executives who are saying, they're viewing their lack of movement in AI as prudence, if you will. And then you have your AI audience watchers. So they're sitting, they're watching and they're waiting for somebody else to kind of figure it out and then quickly follow.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you have your spotlight seekers. Think of these organizations as those who have been really intrigued by a technology, have always been early adopters, and are willing to kind of jump in at the very get-go and are not afraid to fail and pilot success. And then last but not least is where you really begin as that born performer. This is the AI native business, right? From the ground up, it is built with AI at the core in every aspect of their organization and how they think about what they do.
Great points.
Ray and I, we have both our eldest graduated from college this year. Yeah. So they had about 2.5, 3 years of Gen AI experience while they were going to college, university. By the time my middle daughter graduates, by next year, you have graduates that have now 4 years of Gen AI and probably 2 years of agentic AI. Not all of them, but some of them, especially if you're in computer science or technology field. So these digital natives, I'm a digital immigrant. I wasn't born mobile, cloud, social, but I'm in a house, I share space with digital natives. And it's incredible how quickly they can access information, vet information, build this whole vibe coding. And I see it. I see, even my 15-year-old building apps, and it's like using natural language. He doesn't have to be a C#, Python, Java, MATLAB expert. He's literally having conversations with software building stuff. When you're advising companies, whether they're curtain holders or they're born performers, how quickly do you know that that you need to guide these folks to challenge dominant logic and again get in the game? Our last guest said spend 100 hours to 1,000 and build some proficiency. Yeah. I think AI literacy is digital literacy now. If you don't have AI literacy, you really can't talk about digital transformation or positioning yourself for success in the future. And my question also, what motivated you to write this book? What was the moment where you said, I need to demystify this because I realize my students and the folks that I advise are having a hard time perhaps understanding the importance of this technology?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, so I started teaching a class at Rice in the spring of 2024. 24. And I was teaching this curriculum. For most part, what you're seeing in this book is the curriculum I teach at Rice.
Okay.
And I had many students who we did a thing in our class where we called rapid fire, where we kind of open about and I'd share kind of the latest news, the latest advancements. And by way of having this understanding, this literacy within their own organizations, because most of my students are working professionals, they were, has anyone ever heard of this, whether it be Perplexity at the time or leveraging some type of agentic workflow? And my students raised their hands. And so they're like, oh, great. You're now leading our AI council internally. And these are the same people who 2 weeks, 3 weeks prior were like, I don't know what an API is. And I'm like, okay, well, here we go. And so a lot of my students asked me to develop a book so that they could share with their peers and their leaders, because they were realizing they were having to manage up. And so it is really interesting that I find, and it's funny because I have a lot of friends on the more technical side as well, and my background's in linguistics. And so when they tell me that they're reading my book, I have this like moment of panic, because it's like a lot of like analogies and trying to like remove the intimidation or the fear. And I was like, oh no, you're reading the book. Like, no, this is not for you. And they say it's actually helpful because they now have the language they can use to have the conversation that they've struggled with in the past. And I tell my students all the time, there's like a very vivid memory that stands out for me. So I actually was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in middle school. And so language was very hard. So I'm very stubborn. So what do? I studied linguistics, obviously. And and not to the pleasure of my parents, who were both in finance and in oil and gas. And I was the black sheep for years, and I was linguistics in Spanish with, logic. I basically was like a logic minor, did philosophy. And my parents were so concerned. And I remember vividly, because most of my family dinners in our house was always, talking about this shale, this price per barrel, these types of conversations. I would slowly retreat into the corner. And November 22, my dad turned to me and was like, have you heard of this GP something or other? And I literally was like, I was like, oh my God, like I finally have become relevant to my family. This is amazing. And it's really about this understanding, like, the transformer model happened in 2017. Right? It's what happened in 22 was a user experience revolution with this technology that my 75-plus-year-old father is like using it. And so it's really about this, like, you have the power, when we talk about models are just software. And the software that most of these are built on is the English language. Yeah. And, I can nerd out about why on that, but I won't bore everyone. And so it's this, you have the power. Right? Like as a business professional with an idea or a pain point or a strategy, you have the power to do this. Now it's about, understanding that power also comes with some responsibility, and there's some other things on the other side of it. But I am very excited to see, and the thing that gets me excited every day is being able to see what types of problems my students solve that I didn't even imagine.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you that you have street cred at home with just
finally
your first book. After 3 books, I still don't have that. So
I had to write a book to get my parents to stop bugging me. I was like, So, but it's actually interesting. My daughter is actually applying as a computational linguistics major. That's what she's interested in. She just came out of a NISLE program, as you know. So she's competing at the national level for linguistics, as you can imagine. And so it's one of the interesting things because she loves doing that kind of stuff. So she just came back from Indonesia, and she's but she has the engineering mindset with the thing. So the right brain, left brain thing that you're talking about is so powerful, especially given where we are in the age of AI. And so I'm sitting here. Oh, go ahead. You're saying? I was
going to say it's so fascinating, and it's. I would love to talk to your daughter actually, because one of the things that I'm working on now is, a problem I heard when talking to an executive who was preparing for her next earnings call, and she's a non-native English speaker. And I'm fascinated by voice and, coding voice and understanding. And I said, what's interesting is oftentimes if you're a non-native speaker, it will be the perception of how your voice, like the tone is being interpreted, is uncertainty. But you're not uncertain about the business performance. You're uncertain about the language or the word choice subconsciously. And so we have started I've been working and how do we solve this problem to level the playing field so that there aren't these subconscious or cues getting passed through that's impacting company performance on the stock market.
Or the
So there's
perception,
so
or the
much-
perception that you don't have the confidence, which is really the case.
Absolutely.
It's actually a funny story. My two kids, because given the nature of where we live, they all had Chinese accents, even though they were born here up until the age of 3 in English. So we had to actually help correct them along the way, because everything they were learning from was really in the audience that they were in, and they would go to like after school Chinese daycare, and that would just make it 10x worse. But they all got different languages along the way. But hey, I wanted to compliment you on the forward from Marie Meyer. She's one of our BT 150 alums, and what she's saying is really important here. In summary for you, like that impact on executives and where you see AI is getting here, where do you hope this goes in the next year or two? Like in terms of their understanding of AI and what they can do with it. What is your hope for them?
So what I really hope for them is, I think, one major realization. If you look at the McKinsey study that has recently come out in terms of corporate implementation of AI programs in companies where the CEO is still involved in the strategic implementation of that AI have a significantly better ROI on those initiatives. So as a CEO, and I know many executives or any executive at that C-suite level, many of them have spent most of their career, if I will say, Heismaning the tech side, being like, oh, that's why we got this person. But you have to lean into it. And when we talk about that every single person within the organization has to be AI literate, it starts with them. Like they're not, obfuscated from it. And then there are a few mind shifts that have to happen. And that is, I think, really interesting, because you go from being a leader and you are seen as somebody who has this experience that has all the answers. But quite frankly, right now, we need executives who know what questions to ask, who are okay with saying, I don't have this answer, but I know these are the questions we need to be asking right now. I know those types of things, and having the, humility and almost like a curiosity to go from the sense of, when you think about most executives, it's about control. I need to do the least amount of shifts so that I don't break something in the process, to really what happens if we do this. And so I think there's some mind shifts that have to happen. And one of the things I've been challenging a lot of the people I talk to, as well as my students, is start planning an AGI Horizon team, 1 to 2 people that are already thinking what happens when the unimaginable is achieved. And it's fascinating because it's going to happen faster than we think. You don't want to be caught flat-footed, and it is really powerful. I had a student, she was a veterinarian actually from like the New Orleans Zoo, and her final thesis project for my strategy class was about AI integration into veterinary care. And I made them ask, they have to present on, what does your AGI team think and what are they starting to think about? And she talked about a few different things. And I was like, well, did you think about when we can start deciphering, the sounds of animals?
Yes.
And she was like, yeah, but that's crazy. Like, I would be laughed at. And I was like, I literally sent her an email a couple months ago being like, they figured it out. And, with 90% accuracy, they can determine 40% of the cat meows. And so it is crazy, but it's, I think, having people who are insatiably curious are going to become so valuable. So start leaning in.
Will now come with subtitles.
Yes. I joked. I was like, I just can't wait till they make a new rerun of The Office, and we now have like the 2 layers of like the characters, and then their pets telling you the brutal truth behind the scenes.
That's awesome.
But it's going to be huge. And so, lean into it. Don't be afraid to not have the answers, and surround yourself with people who are insatiably curious about everything.
We're live here with Kathleen Perley, founder of Demystify AI, author of AI Made Simple, Results Made Real, an executive's guide to partnering with the future. And of course, she's here at Rice and live from Houston. Thank you so much for being on the show and for your insights.
Appreciate it.
And I'll call you. I'll have my daughter call you.
Yes.
I didn't know that. I didn't know your daughter that was her focus. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she's having some fun doing that. But
Wang family is super smart. So
are you all ready to be fired up, Vala?
I am fired up with all the discussion about AI.
I love that. Helene Cahen, founder and principal consultant at Fire Up Innovation Consulting and author of Fire Up Innovation, Sparking and Sustaining Innovation Teams. Helene is an innovative strategist, trainer, facilitator, speaker with over 20 years of experience helping companies navigate innovation challenges. Helene is the founder and principal consultant at Fire Up Innovation Consultancy, where she guides Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, and nonprofits to understand innovation, create innovative new products and services, and build effective teams that can support user-centered culture. Helene has been a facilitator and lecturer for the Haas School of Business and is now coaching in their executive program. She was also the vice president of innovation for a startup and worked in and for packaged goods corporations in the beginning of her career. She's in demand as a speaker on topics of design thinking and creativity, and recently did a TED Talk on high performance collaboration for teams. Welcome, Helene, to DisrupTV.
Thank you.
Great to have
you. Helene, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you. You've been spending a lot of time on innovation, design thinking. You've been in the fixture of the Bay Area for quite some time. How's the landscape changed when we're thinking about innovation and disruption? Because living here, it seems like it's normal. It's the normal world. And talk about how it's changed around the world, and really, especially when you're speaking with your students, especially executives coming from around the world.
Well, I mean, AI is obviously what everybody's talking about. And when you go downtown San Francisco, that's what you see. That's the conference you can go to. Literally, there is like 5 events every 10 minutes that you can attend. So this is a new world, definitely in the Bay Area. And I think it's obviously changing everything. And yet it's a lot of transition, as the other speakers are mentioning, and how do you figure it out? And it's hard to figure out because things are changing so fast that even trying to imagine what's happening in 2 years is really hard. And so this is innovation, and this is innovation in 2 ways. Obviously, there is a company that are core to AI and innovate in the AI world, and there is everybody else that is doing something else but has to integrate AI into everything in their organization. So, yeah.
Please share with us your research in your book, and in terms of how you emphasize the importance of teamwork and how a well-coordinated team influences innovative outcomes.
Yeah, because what I found is there's a lot of discussion about the outcome and what we want to launch, but there is not so much about what it is take to actually make it happen. And historically, there was a group of human. Now it's a group of human and AI. And what's going to be the balance, I don't know, and it keeps changing. But no matter what, you have to take different perspectives, and you have to really have human working on it. And the thing with AI and the thing with innovation is there is ambiguity, that it's not comfortable because you don't know. I mean, what you were doing in the past is not going to work. That's why you're innovating. And so there is, how do you deal as human, fear of not knowing, fear of failure, and everything can get exacerbated in a team. And so if you can really focus on how can we make this team work better together, how we can make the team appreciate the difference of perspective and background and way of thinking, instead of feeling like, oh, this is so hard to work with so-and-so because they are different. Just building the awareness and understanding that the value is, this is not business as usual. And if we can't do what we usually do, we have to bring, and the problem are getting more and more complex and faster to be resolved. So and on the receiving end, whoever's going to purchase whatever you offer are also changing and shifting and are complex. So unless you bring complexity and multiple perspective in the team, the process, and how you get to your innovation outcome, this is not going to be successful outside because of the multiplicity of perspective, and people are there that needs to, ultimately, somebody needs to purchase something.
Yeah.
Or, whether it's with money, whether it's with their time, whether it doesn't matter. If you're a nonprofit, it's still, you want to invest in the mission. So it's the same. And so really understanding the human aspect is still critical.
Does the hiring process need to change? Meaning, are we looking for a new set of skills Given the fact that we're the first generation of business leaders that will manage both human and digital labor in terms of agentic and physical AI, what are we looking for in order to make sure the person we bring on board will help make us a better team? Is it the same filters we used 10 years ago today, or have we changed?
In a way, I think it's the same, but I think it's become more important. And I think the number one threat of whether successful CEOs or people that are good at innovation is curiosity. You have to be curious. You have to be like willing to not know. And I think this is even more important because we can't tell what the future is going to look like. And so we have to live in that ever-shifting world. My concern is that the way that we actually use AI to hire people tend to be more about, okay, how many boxes are we checking? And so the people that are the outlier, the people that have a different background, the people that do things that are not the nice linear thing, I'm a little worried that they might not pass the test.
Well, Helene, let's talk about the diversity issue. You said it's really important in this new world to have team diversity, but you're talking about non-superficial diversity methods. You're talking about experience and expertise and, things that are a higher level of diversity. Is that correct?
Yes. It's all level of diversity. It's your background, it's your experience, it's your technical skills, it's your way that you think. And we think differently about solving problems. And that is really important in your team. Otherwise, somebody's going to be really focused on the detail, while somebody is really going to focus on how we make things done, where somebody is going to really want to ask questions and be sure we're on the right problems. And those are all welcome. But we need to understand that those are important places to be sure the projects move in the right ways and we're not cutting corners.
No, that makes a lot of sense. We use a product internally called Teamability, now known Know Me, because we were trying to figure out the different types of individuals on our team. Some folks talk a really good game, have really good vision. Other people are very good at executing. Other people are good at bringing information back. Some people are supportive. Some people are challenging, right? There are all these different things that you can get to. And that's a mix that's there. Will you be evaluating AI agents the same way to see if they have those diverse traits upon design?
Very good question. I think that if nothing else, you should be prompting in a way that you get those diverse perspectives. And if I just prompt AI and say, give me 10 ideas for blah, my guess is going to be very basic. But if I can be really creative in that and bring those perspectives, bring that in the ask for, different personas or things like that, I think that can make a difference too.
What was AI when I was 5? I kept asking why all the time and nobody would answer me. Oh, anyway.
No, it's great. It's very good advice. Your input prompt, the quality of your input prompt is directly correlated to the quality of the output prompt. And who knew the hottest programming language is English? So you need to really
which is a challenge actually, because we're leaving a lot of the world. And I was talking for people from I was talking with a friend that's from Africa, and it's like, what about us? What about our world, and how the culture is included in the programming and the biases that we're building? And if we're building a world that is limited to the English American world,
American English, not even British English, American English.
Exactly. What a lack of diversity.
I mean, Helene, this is why countries will do sovereign AI, right? We're going to have sovereign. You saw Saudi Arabia, Sadia built the Arabic language model, right? You're going to see these regional sovereign AIs to actually create local content. To create that diversity in the language models, at least. So,
yeah, and the good news is you're going to see diversity of models, even in the world of business. A model can perform really well in one category and really poorly in the other. So you'll be more selective in terms of a heterogeneous set of models to help shape your products and services. When you work with the most innovative teams, think back, teams that brought you joy, because when you were with them, you told yourself, wow, this team is, like Steve Jobs said, they're putting a dent in the universe. They're really creating wonderful value for their stakeholders, and it's beyond an invention. It's something that's going to be a game changer in terms of how we consume products and services. Is there a word or two that you can share that describes these incredible teams that you work with? You mentioned curious. as an important trait.
Curiosity, openness, and willingness to fail.
So openness meaning what? They're radically transparent in how they treat each other and how they share their.
They're open to different perspective. They're open to the crazy idea. They're open to they're just able to suspend judgment and say, this is crazy, but what if? The what if.
What if?
Opening possibilities.
Okay. So curious, open, certainly courageous.
Art of the possible.
They must be in a safe space. I mean, people are not afraid of failure. They're afraid of blame.
Culture has to be important. The culture is critical because if you can't fail, you're going to a tiny bit of innovation. But if you want to really change things, you're going to fail many times, and that's not failure. That's learning.
Great.
I like to rephrase it that way.
Great way to reframe that. That's great. So
and the trick is to be able to do it as cheaply as fast as possible. So let us spend a year and $10 million on something if we can early on try to get as much prototyping, as much feedback, as much learning while we haven't invested too much, and then build from this.
So speed to value, is that a okay way of framing what you just said? Who was it? Collins, who said perfect is the enemy of good. So is it a minimum viable product like Reid Hoffman?
Even it's part of the culture. Like if I'm willing to go to management, to other team and say, I have this ridiculous idea, but can I give me a month and $10,000? Can I explore it?
Okay.
And this is okay.
Experimentation. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Yeah. That's a lot to unpack there. From openness, to curiosity, to safe space, to experimental beginner's mindset. That's great. These are all, I agree. Those would be the words I would use to describe my company. So to innovative company. Go ahead, Ray.
No, I mean, and that process of innovation is important, right? I mean, every 5 years, every 10 years, companies have to remake themselves, right? I mean, a lot of companies right now are caught between two S curves, right? One of the last generation of technology, the next set of generation, it's happening at the same point. How do you help leaders think about where they can make that investment to reduce the technical debt or to go past the cultural change or the transformation? Is that something the leaders can do, or does it actually have to happen at the board level?
I think both. I think there is value to get things I call under the radar screen. Experiment as much as possible, especially in this world that is changing. Prototype, try new things in a way that you might not have to report to the board or whatever, but it's small enough that you can play. And then there's a place when you need to get buy-in from the top that will let you play. We give you some possibilities of trying new thing and fail and just not feeling like if I go back to the board with something that didn't work, then everything else going to be cut down. So it's really those two elements is play and do small and then go high and get support. With very clear criteria. I think it's really important that what are the criteria for success, what are the criteria for playing, what it is, and design your work best within constraints. So it's okay to have constraints, but create that opportunity too.
I love that. A river without boundaries is a puddle. Yeah, you do need to define what success looks like. My last question to you, in the process of writing Fire Up and the research and advising all these incredible companies, any blind spots that you revealed, any lessons learned, any aha moments in the process of writing the book that help you reframe or think about innovation differently?
Well, I would rephrase the question slightly. It's like I wrote this book while AI was coming up. And I'm like, this book is, and I had to stop and rewrite the last end of the book because the world was already changing. Yeah. And so it's just acknowledging that this is what I think some of the principle and core of understanding the mindset necessary for innovation are critical. Yeah. And I think technically the tools like AI can do it for you and all of that. But unless you understand the framework, unless you understand the principle, unless you understand how to manage your team, then AI might not be that useful.
Great.
And be counterproductive, actually.
It's a great point. I mean, and plus we might not in the future be able to take the time to be able to write a book that long anymore because things are changing so fast. So it may be like small chapters get written and then assembled in the future in terms of that world. So
and AI will write your book anyway.
No. We're going to try to write ourselves. So Helene Cahen, founder and and more importantly, principal consultant here at Fire Up Innovation Consulting and author of Fire Up Innovation. So this is sparking and sustaining innovation teams, more and more important than ever. So thank you so much for being here, and get her book on Amazon. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congrats on your book and your work.
In the green room. Yeah, this is great.
Lot to unpack, Ray. Can you serve as our ChatGPT version 5, which means a super crisp, super relevant summary of what we heard in the last hour?
We will do it with more humor and emotion, like
the professional edition version. Go ahead.
So I think it's important. Like Phong shared with us really how this BTC movement, Bitcoin, has really transformed companies. It's playing a role in treasury. He's also talking about the innovations that he has as a software company in analytics and AI. They were early in the Gen AI stage, and I think it's really important. We're moving from data to decisions. It's really about action, not about just looking at numbers and doing nothing with it. And of course, the Bitcoin treasury is going to be pretty mainstream, we think, in the next 3 to 5 years. Kathleen spent some time helping us understand why it was so important to have AI in a level that leaders can consume and understand the implications. And what was important here is really being able to figure out, like, where this future is going to be. How do we actually work with folks, getting them ready or AI ready to be part of a long-term success using AI and building the right business models. And we just learned why it's so important to be able to deal with change. Helene was spending time helping us think about, this world of innovation is going to be changing and shifting. How do we actually make this work? What's the right way to get the right teams, the right level of diversity, especially when trying to think about innovation? It's more than just superficial diversity. There's a lot of important information in terms of people's experiences, the way they ask questions, their style, and AI, of course, is playing a role in terms of how we do that and accelerating the way we get to that level of innovation. And I think a big part of the book is also really talking about, this innovation challenge. The cycles are getting smaller and getting more compressed. And so our ability to respond to that more quickly is probably going to be augmented with AI, though she didn't say that directly. So back to you, Vala. Back to you for the weather. I'm just kidding.
That was like a preview of GPT 6.0. That was awesome.
I don't know. Stump the Chump. Do you remember that show?
The Gemini version. Bitcoin is good. Don't be afraid of AI. And it's not tech that disrupts.
Hey, there's this thing called Quad Panel that was awesome. I think the guy ran out of tokens, but you could ask a question. It would ask all 4 LLMs, and then it'd have all 4 LLMs grade it and come back. One of these, you and I will do a product show, but it's so freaking cool.
I am counting the days before I'm replaced by an AI agent on this show, led by your disruptive thinking.
Never. Okay. Authenticity.
All right. Next week, we have Robert Glazer, founder, chairman of Board of Acceleration Partners, and the #1 Wall Street Journal best-selling author of several books, including Elevate, Friday Forward, and How to Thrive in the Virtual Workplace.
I get that newsletter every week. What about you?
I get that newsletter every week. Yeah. No, Robert is a long-form weekly writer. He reminds me, he's the closest thing I know to Seth Godin. Seth writes his short blogs daily. Well, Robert's got a long-form newsletter that comes out every Friday. Yeah, it's great. We'll talk about that with him. Jim Sullivan, CEO of NWN, and Jacqueline Carter, co-author of More Human: How the Power of AI Can Transform the Way You Lead. You recognize that our producer, Ray, and I are trying to make a concerted effort to get some AI thought leaders, best-selling authors to be on the show. So together as a community, we can be a little bit more receptive, open, and accessible, and curious about this important technology. And together, the smartest person in the room is the room. So together, we're going to be able to overcome any fear, doubt, and uncertainty we have regarding these important technologies, including cryptocurrencies and blockchain. Buy Bitcoin. Sorry, unsolicited financial advice. All right, if it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Happy Friday.